Mais on peut peut-être parler de prochaine plutôt mais on s'arrête pas. Moi, c'est génial. Oui, voilà, c'est ça. On est dans une extrême ou dans l'autre, mais il n'y a pas forcément. Donc, pour la deuxième partie, on va switch to English.
Désolée, mais mon niveau de français, c'est pas très bon.
Bon, elle est très bon, mais voilà, il faut être à l'aise pour présenter ses travaux de recherche. C'est important. Donc, Cristina va prendre la suite sur le volet réglementaire, justement, et politique publique. Je te laisse la parole, Cristina. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. If you can warn me when I have 5 minutes, because otherwise I will talk and then we will have troubles. Okay, well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. Again, I'm sorry because my level of French is not that high to have a full presentation in French. Now I'm working at the Banque de France as a senior research economist. Before I was an associate prof at Cambridge. So now I have to say in every presentation a usual disclaimer we use in central banks. This is my views, or these are my views, and not the views of the Banque de France in any way. That's something that now it's compulsory. So what I'm gonna do today is basically present one research that I did in the framework of the project, or a project that we call PIRES. Policy instruments for the energy efficiency transition associated to the Fit for 55 project that we are developing together with Professor Mark Ringo in the LIEP. The idea of this project basically is to try to understand what are the enabler mechanisms that allow us to go from the proposed targets of the European Commission to actually achieve those targets in the field of energy efficiency. And for that, we look at this from two perspectives. An upstream perspective, which is the work of Mark mostly, in which he is basically interviewing and trying to understand from the side of the stakeholders what are the motivations to set the targets, why those targets are not others, and all these things related to the negotiations at the European level with the transposition of directive to the national laws, and a downstream part that I will try to talk a little bit today about it, which is more focusing on how, once we have the targets, policies can be implemented so people manage to achieve those targets, okay? I'm basically trying to understand what are the aspects relating to human behavior mostly that allow us to successfully implement the different policies. We had 3 expected results. So as I said, I will mostly talk about the last one. Basically insights today on the incentives and barriers associated to the work at the household level that is needed in order to reduce consumption, reduce emissions when we invest in energy efficiency and in particular energy efficiency renovations. I'm going to start with some general facts, trying to set the context. Already the 2 wonderful previous speakers have said the field very, very well, so I will pass fairly fast on some of the information. My presentation will talk mostly about the UK because it's where I was working before, where I know a little bit better. And then at the very end, I added a part about France with some results that I managed to get, but my research is mostly focused on the UK. So in general, why it's important to look at households and energy efficiency households. We might always think that, what is industry? Who is generating a lot of emissions? Why don't we focus on big enterprises and so on? And it's true that industry generates a lot of emissions, but still the household sector is actually the second biggest sector in terms of energy consumption when we look at the whole primary energy consumption after transport. Okay, that this data is at the European level. I extracted from the Eurostat. In the UK, that figure goes a little bit up. I mean, UK it's well known for being one of the OECD countries with the highest primary energy consumption, and they go up to 30%. France is very, very similar to the European Union average. But in this framework, it's important to say that still buildings accounts for 47% of gas consumption, followed by industry, which is 31%, and then power plants. And it's the one or the consuming sector that consumes more electricity in France before services and industry. So we are talking about a sector that has a lot of room to try to work with it and try to understand how we can reduce emissions and reduce energy consumption on the building sector, but in particular on households. A little bit more on the energy consumption and on fuels. I think it was the first speaker, Nadine, that showed something similar to that. What I want you to pay attention here is mostly on the peak that we had in 2010 to 2021, just to start making or give us an idea of why behaviors are very important. Okay, the building stock from 2020 to 2021 didn't vary that much, but we have more consumption in 2021. That was COVID, okay? We spent more time at home. So basically, we had a little bit higher of consumption of energy in households at that time. After the peak during COVID, we returned a little bit to the same levels of 2020. And then there was a little bit more of a reduction in 2023, motivated partly by the Ukraine-Russia war, okay? So that's part actually of one of the main goals of the European Union during or after the Ukraine war started, or Ukraine-Russia war started. It was actually reduce dependencies with two main goals, basically kind of diversify where we were taking the energy from, Europeans, and second, reducing the consumption to the highest possible. Energy prices. I talk about behaviors, but it's very important to understand as well what is the effect of energy prices. And before, Nadine as well mentioned inequalities in terms of how the buildings are constructed, how old they are, there is a lot of inequalities in terms of access to energy, and price is one of those variables that we include in every single model, because the European Union, in particular during the last years, this is natural gas, that is electricity prices, have seen huge increases on prices during the last 5-6 years. You will see if you can, I don't think you can read, but basically the bar represents the taxes and levies associated to the energy. And then what we have is the price without taxes, the yellow or orange bar, and the price with taxes, the blue line. So basically what the government's trying to do during 2022 is to establish tax breaks, tax reductions to the price, and some kind of stop to the price of gas and electricity, so individuals and households didn't suffer that much the peak in prices that we were seeing during the period, okay? These high price increases has generated that a lot of households actually cannot pay for the bills. And what we are doing is basically just shut down the heating systems because there's no way for them to pay. That's why it's very important to talk about energy efficiency in the household sector as well. I just mentioned that before very briefly. So the energy dependencies that we have. The European Union in particular has high energy dependencies in gas, mostly, and a lot of gas from Russia is coming. So basically what they tried to do, or one of the reasons as well of the increase in prices, it was such dependency and the fact that we couldn't rely anymore on the cheap Russian gas in order to make our needs. The Green Deal chief actually said that the cheapest energy is the one that we don't consume. So therefore, the focus during the majority of time during the 2022 and 2023 on the reduction of energy consumption and fostering energy efficiency. You can see here more or less the same pattern that I said before. So we have the black bar is 2020, the blue bar is 2022, and the orange bar is 2023. There was a little bit of increase from 2020 to 2022 due to the COVID thing and so on. And then we saw a reduction in most of the countries. For the United Kingdom, because of Brexit, we don't have data anymore in Eurostat. So I just put the bar for the year 2023, which is the one that we had. So the policy landscape. I gave already some pinches about what the European Union was doing in particular. And one of the big goals or the big policy package that were put in place is the one that was called Repower EU, which is a plan to rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, energy dependency from Russian fossil fuels, and foster the energy transition. Initially, and that's interesting when we start talking about regulations at the European level, this package started from wanting to increase an energy efficiency target and goal from 9% to 13% under the Fit for 55 package, this big package of the European Union in order to decarbonize the economy. But eventually, because of these conversations that I mentioned, my colleague Mark is trying to understand and figure out how things go, we didn't manage, or the European Union didn't manage to sign and agree on a reduction or the energy for increase of the energy efficiency target to 13%, but only to 11.7% in comparison to a projection of the expected energy use in 2030. That is the goal that we have right now in the energy efficiency directive. Some of the other measures they try to put in place, communication on how with short-term or different behavioral changes we could reduce gas in particular and oil demand, and fostering these fiscal measures that I just mentioned that happened in order to try to contain the increase in prices and that they didn't affect that much, in particular to industry, but mostly to households. In this whole landscape, this is just taken from the database that is called MURE, and it's a very big project on energy efficiency, including information about all European countries. Just got some information about the energy efficiency directive, but basically, to summarize, is the same that I mentioned before, just the target, the 11.7% target in comparison to the projected consumption that we will have in 2030. There are different aspects associated to cross-sectional kind of measures, not only associated to energy efficiency in households, but also in other buildings and also in other sectors, and the amended energy performance of building directive, basically building codes, in order to regulate what is the amount of emissions that a particular building can do. In this column, what you see is like it says NECP measures, that is National Energy Climate Policy plans measures, and it's like every single European country has to present to the European Commission a national plan on climate and energy in order to say the Commission how they aim to achieve the goals and how they aim to contribute to the final targets of the European Commission. This is the European level, let's say, framework. So that's why there is not a national energy climate plan here. But the measures, for example, at the France level, they are included or should be included in the last national energy and climate plans, okay? Before, there has been a way bigger framework of the policies that have been included. Here I just have the biggest or the umbrella, let's say, regulations, an energy saving certificate, a heat fund, the building codes, and something that I will be back to at the very, very end, which is the Apply and Renov project or project policy that basically is a state subsidy in order to foster the adoption of energy efficiency measure in households. This is the framework for France, generally speaking, cross-cutting measures and basically buildings and households. But what happened with a cross-cutting measure is something very important. It's like all this, and at the European level, it's like all these policies need to funnel and being transposed at the national level. And then there is when problems arise. But it's not only when problems arise at the national level, it's that below the national level, we have regional level and we have local level. In France, things are a little bit more centralized. In Spain, it's a real mess in terms of energy efficiency because we have the national level trying to transpose the directives and then regulations at the regional level that in many occasions actually contradict what the national regulation says. So basically, there is some kind of inconsistencies in the way in which we apply the different policies. That is something that Nadine has shown before as well. So in this context, what are the real challenges for households in terms of energy? So the majority of consumption, or where consumption of energy comes from in households, is heating. Okay, yes, water heating, school cooking a little bit, but basically it's heating. Around 67% will be just space heating. Lighting is not that much of a problem anymore. So basically, the only way in which we can, in reality, reduce emissions and reduce consumption is through heating. But the problem with heating is the following. When we talk about renovations at home, it's very easy just to do lighting and appliances. They don't cost that much, and it's very fast. So it doesn't generate any issue. It's cheap, no? And you just go, change your bulbs, that's fine. Okay, you get a broken fridge, the next one, it will be more efficient, because just by definition, it will be more efficient. You change your fridge. So appliances tend to be cheaper and faster changes. But when it comes to heating measures and energy efficiency measures, the story changed completely. These measures and changing these behaviors and technologies, they are more expensive, and they imply also sense of, how do I say, planification. Okay, you cannot just decide, okay, I'm gonna change the bulb. If you want to do cavity walls or insulation, or even change the heat pump, these energy efficiency measures related to the heating requires way bigger investments, change in infrastructure, and therefore planification, administration, and so on and so on. And the majority of policies that we have don't pay that much attention to these other things except the finances. Oops. Okay. So now I'm gonna show you the case of the UK, which is the one that I have worked the most. The results are part of the project, as I just mentioned. This is a paper trying to understand basically how the national policies at the national level in the UK affect household energy efficiency decisions, if they will or will not adopt a particular energy efficiency renovation. They will assess or try to assess the impact of different policy instruments, in particular grants, tax credits, and informational campaigns, identify what are the main barriers and what are the main drivers of these decisions on energy efficiency, trying to evaluate which ones are more effective. In terms of the context, as I said, I mean, the UK basically have a residential sector that accounts for around 32% of the energy consumption. There is a very important thing that I want to highlight, which is the energy poverty associated to the price surge. So basically in the UK, we have now a rate of around 14% of households in fuel poverty. And the urgent need in order to get the targets, okay? The UK has, well, very similar targets to the European one, because the majority of them were established before they left. Then they left and they have adopted, continue adopting the others. So in this framework, I'm not gonna stop in here. I think I'm gonna go to the results. But basically we explore three different categories of instruments. Regulatory instruments, that would be these building codes, basically, that are telling us what to do and how the buildings have to perform. We will have some economic and financial instruments that try to support that people actually adopt particular energy efficiency measures, and that are very important when it comes to vulnerable households, because these type of investments have a lot of or high upfront costs. Also instruments related to basically information. Just telling people how much they will save, or how good this particular energy efficiency improvement is, or simply telling them, okay, if you want to ask for this particular economic instrument, if you want to apply for this grant, this is what you have to do. And there is where we are finding a lot of gaps. There are a lot of households that don't have access to how to apply to the particular grants. And this is what many governments are using in order to reduce the money that they are providing for energy efficiency in the household sector. barriers, I already mentioned that, financial constraints, informational asymmetries. There is not the same kind of information in households that comes from very high educational level to lower educational level, administrative complexity. I have a colleague in Cambridge, Professor Lucia Gash, that she always said that she wanted to renovate her house in Germany and she had to send literally 500 emails over the course of 2 years. It's like, okay, and this is you that knows how to do things. But people that don't know how to do things, how they are going to actually do it. And then social and behavioral factors associated to the adoption of the energy efficiency measures. So basically, we explore a set of hypotheses. If public policy facilitates the access to information, adoption, and the reduction of upfront cost, therefore, there will be a higher probability that a particular household adopt energy efficiency measures for heating in particular. So we look at heating. Then we look at, in particular, informational and administrative barriers. That is something that hadn't been looked at before. And then in the very last hypothesis, what we try to do is to understand how these different policies interact. Because as I said, you can have the grant, and that's particularly effective. But if you don't know how to apply for that grant, it doesn't make that much sense. Oops. Okay, I'm sorry. You cannot really see this, but I will make the point. So the point is around the lines that I mentioned before. All the orange things are programs implemented in the UK that have been cancelled, okay? So they were put in place. Some of them were finished. Some of them, like the Green Home Grants, for example, were cancelled completely. These first ones are what they call energy efficiency certificates, which basically works in the way that is the utility, the one that is going to come to your household to offer you the renovation. So basically, if you implement this renovation, you will be able to reduce your energy consumption to this point. And then what the government does is to support the company, and the company helps you, something like that, okay? So there is an intermediary in between. The Green Deal and the Green Home Grants, and the last two schemes that are still working, are grants, okay? So you just apply for your grants and you perform your energy efficiency renovation. Normally, they are oriented towards insulation in different ways, or now also the scheme about heating systems, okay? Like new heat pumps and replacing your old pumps or your old heating system with heat pumps. The Green Home Grants is very interesting because it only lasted 6 months. Basically, they put some money on it, but nobody was applying for the money, okay? And I really believe that it was a problem of implementation in the sense that it started during COVID, during winter in the UK. That's like, who is going to apply to bring someone to their houses to insulate the house during COVID in winter? Like if it's summer, okay, I have windows open, I will have to organize that I leave my house during a period so the insulation, the cavity walls, whatever are done. But no. So I really believe it was a problem of implementation, but it's something that we need to take as well into consideration when we establish different policies. The goal was to reduce energy efficiency consumption. It didn't work that well. So the idea of the paper basically is to try to understand why these policies, some of them were better than others, okay? And if some of them were better than others. For that, we had a survey with around 2,000 households. It's a representative survey of the UK, focusing on energy efficiency in heating. And I just used this pre-choice model. I mean, methodologically and from an econometric point of view, it's nothing complicated. It's just simply calculating what is the probability that you adopt a particular measure if you have these policies, this set of policies in place. But we have to control, as we have mentioned before already, by a lot of different characteristics of the household. So how many people live there, how many rooms you have, what are the square meters that you have, if your household is an actual one dwelling, or if it's multiple, if you live in a flat, if you live in a detached house, all these kind of things, what income levels, education, were controlled for. And then what we added were the policy preferences. When we talk about policy preferences, obviously you cannot see here again, but we took in place tax credits, grants, loans, utilities preferences, let's say, if you want to your utilities to be involved in the thing in order to kind of simulate the certificates information, administrative barriers or easing administrative barriers, and then informational variables related to providing information about the efficient use of your devices or of your things at home, information about the support schemes themselves, information about potential savings, and that's mostly it. What did we see? So there is some descriptive results here. So basically, we divided the adopted measures into groups, where we consider low cost based on the another survey that is actually official in the UK, the NEET survey. Low cost measures and high cost measures. And we tried to figure out how many of the households put in place different measures. In reality, the most common type of measure is double glazing in households. But then what we see, it's a high, there is not that many households actually providing or implementing efficiency measures. And it's, to be honest, it was surprisingly high, given what I was expecting. I was expecting way less in the survey, to the point that I had to come back and see if actually the sample was representative, because I was not believing the own results that I was getting. But this is a very important thing. Who is aware of the policies that are in place? I mentioned a set of different policies and programs that were put in place to help people, but there is a lack of awareness of these programs. People don't know that these programs exist. So therefore, how are you going to apply to them if you don't know them? Only half of the sample were aware of at least one of the supporting schemes in the UK. And then, because of that, we thought that focusing on the provision of instruments about these type of programs and how to apply to them was something interesting in order to boost that people actually apply for energy efficiency. Are we on the right path if we try to understand that? And it seems it was. So basically, these are the main results. What we have here is just the ratio, the probability that a household will adopt energy efficiency when when they favor a particular type of instrument. Grants are significantly increased the adoption of energy efficiency, which is not surprising. If I give you money, I will adopt the energy efficiency. And people don't like loans, okay? I have to repay for it. Loans have a negative marginal effect. We think due to the aversion and also uncertainty over payback periods also in a context of uncertainty already, because take into consideration that the survey took place after COVID, but COVID was very, very recent. And what we see is actually information about savings seems to increase the probability that households will adopt, and also the awareness, how many programs, how many policies they are aware of, how many of those schemes they know, okay? When we look at differences in between low cost and high cost measures, this was interesting because in reality, for high cost measures, what we see, there's a lot of administrative barriers. Sorry, because I forgot the administrative barriers here, and it's very important. People need to know fast how to apply to things. So if we manage to facilitate that, they will apply to them more easily. But that's something that comes from mostly as well from high cost measures, which is something interesting because we thought that it was due to actually the fact that high cost measures are only taken or adopted by high income households, and we would expect that high income households have a level of knowledge that is higher than low income households about these measures, and maybe simply related to basically I don't have to go to 5 different providers to give me the information about how to do the energy efficiency measure, how to implement the energy efficiency measure. Again, for low-cost measures, kind of the similar or the most similar results to the general ones. Loans are not significant. Grants are very important. Very important information about savings and awareness once more. But what is very relevant is the combination of policies as well. For example, in the information that I provided before, tax credits on their own are not good measures. But if you combine tax credits with information provision, then the effect tends to be positive. So we need to think more specifically about what are the effective combos or the effective policy mixes that will allow us to boost the energy efficiency adoption in order to reduce consumption at the household level. So isolated strategies don't work that well, but if we think holistically, we can actually foster energy efficiency in households better. And I will go very fast about what about France. I just used data from the training survey because I didn't have the last survey. I don't know if in 2023 they had another one. Normally they should have done one in 2023. And what I wanted to show basically if the same results kind of holds for France or if there is some differences with the ones that I had with the UK. What we see here is a very much bigger survey, okay, because this is one made with government sources. We are talking about around 50,000 households here. And there is only 10,000 households out of more than 50,000 actually, that have adopted energy efficiency measures during, at least one, during 2017 to 2019, which are the years that this survey covers. And the majority, again, as it happens in the case of the UK, the windows. It seems to be the easiest or fastest way to work on that. There is still issues or some information on insulations done as well, roof renovations, and so on and so forth, but mostly windows. When it comes to the available type of aids that you can receive in this particular case, here I use the main ones at the national level that appears in the database. Of course, the Marunov that I mentioned before, it's after this particular period, so it doesn't appear here. But there is some people, I was surprised that a lot of people know the credit reduction of taxes as well. A lot of people know the yeah, thank you very much. Here, there is some others that were not well known, but mostly these are tax credits in reality or in initiatives associated to the taxes that you will pay after. I added here that basically the survey has 14 additional measures at the regional and departmental level as well. And in terms of regional level policies, the maximum percentage of people that knew about some of the programs was 16%. Sorry for the mistake there. So basically, of those measures reported as taken by households, approximately 6,000 have been done without any support. Okay, so they were 10,000, 60% of them, no support. In reality, many of the people will tell you, self-funded, okay? I just pay for it. So I know the program, but in reality, I mean, well, these were automatic because I assume the tax reduction, the BTA reduction is automatic, but nobody apply for any particular type of financial measure or instrument in order to facilitate. So you pay. And if you can pay, you pay. And if you can't, which normally are the low and vulnerable income households, you can. Why could you, and this is only showing those households that have done some renovations, but still have some others to do because there is some room for them to improve. And the majority will tell you, I'm not doing it, again, because of financial reasons. I cannot pay for it, so I will not keep doing. And that is when, and I'm gonna finish, I wanted to bring the Marunov to the room. So basically, the last budget of the government has cut the budget for this program in particular, for the energy efficiency renovations in buildings. And the government justified that they do it because people haven't used it. Okay, so del consumento, como, okay, so they haven't used it. Why? Because there is a lack of awareness in general, because so it's very important that we promote awareness, that we reduce also administrative barriers in a whole bunch of other instruments if we want to foster the adoption of these particular measures at the household level. So basically, just to finalize, so we need to prioritize financial incentives, in particular grants, that can boost adoption, streamline administrative processes with a more accessible design, target informational campaigns, mostly focusing on savings, while a little bit less than on how efficient or efficiency advice in general. Use policy mixes, combining financial tools and soft instruments. Address the equity concerns. So tax credits are good for people that can pay early on for the investment, but if you cannot, they will not benefit from that. And the importance of the time interventions with housing transitions, which is something that I haven't mentioned that, but many of the instruments would work better if we are able to, at the household level, target those periods in which there are already changes or other renovations, or you are moving out or moving in, and so on, because people are already in a, let's say, messy state. So a little bit more of mess will not make a lot of harm. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, Tina.
Yes. Please, yes.
Sorry.
Very good. Can you explain how is actually the non-30% and the 11.7? How do you calculate this efficiency target?